On November 24, 1971, a man boarded a plane carrying nothing more than a briefcase. A few hours later, he had collected $200,000, parachuted into the darkness, and disappeared forever. More than 50 years later, nobody knows who he was.
This is the story of D.B. Cooper, a name that echoes through the annals of true crime as the perpetrator of the only unsolved skyjacking in American history.
It's a tale of audacious planning, a desperate escape, and an enduring mystery that continues to captivate generations. Who was this elusive figure, and how did he pull off such an incredible feat? Our story begins in Portland, Oregon. On that fateful Wednesday, an impeccably dressed man identifying himself as Dan Cooper purchased a one-way ticket on Northwest Orient Airlines Flight 305 to Seattle, Washington. He was described as being in his mid-40s, wearing a dark suit, a white shirt, a black tie, and a trench coat. His demeanor was calm, polite, and unremarkable, fitting in perfectly with the business travelers of the era. No one on the ground, nor any of the passengers, could have predicted the audacious events that were about to unfold high above the Pacific Northwest. At precisely 2:50 p.m., Flight 305 took off from Portland International Airport. On board were 36 passengers and a crew of 6. Cooper settled into seat 18C, a window seat towards the rear of the plane. Soon after takeoff, he ordered a bourbon and soda, lit a cigarette, and appeared to be a typical passenger on a short commuter flight. He was calm, even friendly, engaging in polite conversation with the flight attendant, Florence Schaffner. No red flags were raised, no alarms were sounded. The first leg of this journey was uneventful, but that tranquility was about to shatter. Around 3 p.m., as the plane cruised at 10,000 feet, Cooper handed a note to Florence Schaffner. Assuming it was a lonely businessman's phone number, Schaffner simply tucked it into her purse. However, Cooper leaned in and calmly stated, "Miss, you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." This chilling declaration transformed an ordinary flight into a high-stakes hostage situation. Schaffner, instructed by Cooper, then took the note to the cockpit. The handwritten message was concise and terrifying. Cooper claimed to have a bomb in his briefcase and demanded $200,000 in negotiable American currency, along with 4 parachutes. Upon receiving the note, the flight crew immediately contacted air traffic control. Pilot William Scott relayed Cooper's demands, which included not only the cash but also 2 main parachutes and 2 reserve parachutes. Cooper specified that the money should be in unmarked $20 bills and delivered to the aircraft upon landing. He also gave precise instructions for the fuel truck to be ready for immediate refueling. It was a sophisticated set of demands, indicating a level of forethought that baffled investigators. The calmness and precision of his requests suggested a man in control, undeterred by the gravity of his actions. While Cooper waited for his demands to be met, the plane circled Seattle-Tacoma International Airport for over 2 hours. This holding pattern allowed authorities ample time to gather the ransom money and parachutes, and for the FBI to mobilize. The tension inside the aircraft must have been palpable, yet Cooper remained remarkably composed. He even offered to pay for his second drink. This bizarre detail further cemented his image as a man operating under extraordinary circumstances with an unnerving sense of normalcy. All the while, agents on the ground worked frantically to meet his very specific and unusual demands. Finally, at 5:39 p.m., Flight 305 landed at Seattle-Tacoma. Cooper instructed that the plane be parked away from the terminal, with all window shades drawn to prevent observation. An airport employee, instructed by the FBI, delivered the cash and parachutes to the aircraft. Cooper carefully inspected the money and the parachutes, ensuring they met his exact specifications. The ransom consisted of 10,000 unsequential $20 bills, all marked by the FBI. This meticulous detail, meant to aid in tracking the money, would become a crucial, albeit elusive, piece of evidence in the decades-long investigation. With the ransom and parachutes secured, Cooper allowed the 36 passengers and 2 flight attendants, Florence Schaffner and Alice Hancock, to disembark. He kept only the pilot, First Officer William Radizak, Flight Engineer H.E. Anderson, and Flight Attendant Tina Mucklow, who would later provide the most detailed description of Cooper. This decision demonstrated a calculated move, enough crew to operate the plane, but minimized witnesses for his next phase. As the passengers streamed off the aircraft, they were met by anxious family members and a swarm of FBI agents, all trying to piece together what had just happened. At Cooper's instruction, the plane was refueled, and at 7:40 p.m., it took off once again. He ordered the pilot to fly south-southeast towards Mexico City, at an altitude no higher than 10,000 feet, with the landing gear down and the wing flaps at 15 degrees. This specific flight configuration significantly reduced the plane's speed, making a parachute jump feasible. Furthermore, he demanded the cabin remain unpressurized, creating conditions that would facilitate an exit. The crew, under duress, complied, knowing that their lives depended on following every one of Cooper's commands. Around 8 p.m., somewhere over the dense, rainy forests of southwestern Washington, Cooper made his move. He lowered the aircraft's aft airstair, a retractable staircase at the tail of the Boeing 727. With the briefcase of money strapped to his body and 2 parachutes on, he stood at the edge, a figure silhouetted against the dark, stormy sky. At approximately 8:13 p.m., without a word, he jumped. Below him lay a vast, unforgiving wilderness, battered by a severe storm. He vanished, not into a crowd, but into the absolute emptiness of the night. The mystery of his disappearance began at this very moment. The moment Cooper vanished, the largest and longest-running manhunt in FBI history was launched. Codenamed Norjack, a portmanteau of Northwest hijacking, the operation involved hundreds of FBI agents, local law enforcement, and military personnel. The search focused on the rugged terrain of the Pacific Northwest, specifically a 200-square-mile area near Ariel, Washington. Teams combed through dense forests, braved treacherous rivers, and endured freezing temperatures. Every lead, every tip, no matter how remote, was pursued with relentless determination, yet Cooper seemed to have melted into the wilderness without a trace. Despite the unprecedented scale of the search, physical evidence was scarce. Inside the plane, investigators found 8 fingerprints, a black clip-on tie, and a mother-of-pearl tie clasp. These were the only direct physical traces D.B. Cooper left behind. The fingerprints were analyzed against millions of records but yielded no matches. The tie, a narrow clip-on style, was subjected to advanced forensic analysis decades later, revealing traces of titanium, aluminum, and other rare earth metals. This suggested Cooper might have worked in an industry involving metal fabrication or chemical handling. However, without a body or a clear identity, these clues offered more questions than answers. The most vivid description of Cooper came from flight attendant Tina Mucklow, who spent the longest time with him. She described him as calm, polite, and well-spoken, not appearing nervous or drunk. Her observations were crucial for creating the initial police sketches. She noted his brown eyes, the faint lines around his mouth, and his dark skin, which she believed might indicate a Native American heritage or significant sun exposure. This eyewitness account, however detailed, still left investigators with a broad range of possibilities, failing to pinpoint a specific individual within their extensive databases. For nearly a decade, the case went cold. Then, in February 1980, a 9-year-old boy named Brian Ingram was digging on a beach along the Columbia River, near Vancouver, Washington. He unearthed a decaying package containing $5,800 in $20 bills. Critically, the serial numbers matched the ransom money given to D.B. Cooper. This discovery, known as the Tina Bar find, invigorated the investigation, offering the first tangible evidence since the jump. It suggested Cooper might have landed near the Washougal River or that the money had drifted downstream, raising new questions about his landing zone and survival. With few facts, theories abounded. One leading suspect was Kenneth Christensen, a former paratrooper and flight attendant for Northwest Orient. He bore a striking resemblance to the Cooper sketch and had bought a house with cash shortly after the hijacking. He was known for his calm demeanor and meticulous planning, fitting the profile. However, he was also described as a loyal employee and there was no direct evidence linking him to the crime. FBI agents interviewed him, but he was eventually dismissed as a suspect before his death in 1994. Yet, many still believe he had the skills and motive. Another prominent suspect was Richard McCoy, a highly skilled helicopter pilot, former Green Beret, and avid parachutist. Just 5 months after the Cooper hijacking, McCoy executed a strikingly similar skyjacking, demanding $500,000 and parachuting from a plane. He was caught and convicted, but the parallels to Cooper's crime were undeniable, leading many to believe he was the original hijacker. However, McCoy had a solid alibi for Thanksgiving Eve 1971, placing him in Las Vegas. While he matched the modus operandi, the timing and location made his involvement as Cooper highly improbable. Robert Rackstraw, a former military paratrooper and ex-convict, gained significant attention as a Cooper suspect in recent years. Known for his cunning and survival skills, Rackstraw had a checkered past and connections to the Pacific Northwest. An investigative team, led by a former FBI agent, presented compelling circumstantial evidence, including an alleged confession and a timeline that put him in the right place at the right time. Despite the strong claims, the FBI officially dismissed Rackstraw as a viable suspect in 2017, citing a lack of direct, verifiable evidence. He passed away in 2019, taking any potential secrets with him. Another intriguing claim came from Dwayne Weber. On his deathbed in 1995, Weber allegedly confessed to his wife, Jo, that he was D.B. Cooper. He described details of the jump and even showed her an old injury consistent with a parachute landing. Jo Weber contacted the FBI, who investigated her claims. They found some circumstantial evidence, including a prior criminal record and a travel pattern that put him near the jump zone. However, forensic analysis of the tie clasp and fingerprints did not match Weber's. Ultimately, like so many others, his story could not be definitively corroborated. The D.B. Cooper case remains officially unsolved due to a convergence of factors. The vast, rugged terrain into which he jumped made a successful ground search nearly impossible. The limited physical evidence, coupled with no definitive eyewitness identification, left investigators with too many variables. Furthermore, Cooper's meticulous planning, from his choice of aircraft to his specific flight demands, suggests a sophisticated understanding of aviation and parachuting. He anticipated the chase, giving him a critical head start and a dense wilderness to disappear into. The question lingers: did he survive the jump, or did the unforgiving elements claim him? Perhaps the greatest enigma of all is the missing $194,200 of the ransom money. Only the Tina Bar find accounted for a fraction of the original sum. Where did the rest of it go? Did Cooper bury it? Did he carry it away and successfully integrate it back into society? The FBI eventually discontinued active investigation of the case in 2016, citing a reprioritization of resources. Yet, the case file remains open, indicating that any new, credible evidence could still reignite the hunt for the man who pulled off the impossible. The money, like Cooper himself, vanished into thin air. More than half a century later, D.B. Cooper remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in American history. He captured the public imagination, embodying a rogue figure who outsmarted the system. His story has inspired books, films, songs, and countless discussions, becoming a permanent fixture in American folklore. The audacious nature of his crime, combined with his inexplicable disappearance, ensures his legend will continue to fascinate. A man stepped onto a plane, then vanished into legend. Subscribe to Legacy Vault and join us as we uncover the forgotten stories, hidden mysteries, and remarkable events that shaped history.